Sure. Looking at a weekly chart of the Nasdaq, which showed that it was down 442 points or 2.43% last week, closed at 17,754. So another down week. I believe if I zoom in here, you can see that it's been down 4 weeks in a row and six out of the last seven. So definitely in a correction here. 15% correction from peak to trough. I want to take a look at the daily chart though, because it reveals, your sideways action from the top there, 20,204 on December 16th. And we see, lower highs as it continued to chop sideways for a while. And then it, corrected quickly. It went through, corrected via time and then price. Boom, we get the waterfall trade. This is a 15% correction from peak to trough. I got to change this here. Sorry about that. Too many lines. You can see right here it sliced its 40-week line or its 200 simple moving average, and it closed on Friday 4.1% below that. 3.6% below that average. So a lot of people were, pretty bullish because the Nasdaq made a low on Tuesday of 17,239. Then on Thursday, tested that low and found support. Then on Friday, it had this big up day, 451 points or 2.61%. I just caution the move on Friday was on lighter volume if you're into that kind of thing. But the prior Friday, we had another big move of 126 points, and the Friday before that was February 28th, where it traded down to the 200, found support and bounced. You could see that hammer candle. So the expectation would be that it would trade higher, and nope, it came lower. Last week closed near the highs of its daily range on Friday. You expect it to move higher? Nope, traded lower. Now, it did make this low and tested that low and found support. So that gives the bulls some ammunition that, hey, maybe that is the low. Keep an open mind, be flexible. But if you look at the weekly chart, you could say, yeah, we're down 4 weeks in a row. There's a lot of momentum to the downside, and money is coming out of the U.S. markets, and the strong stocks are in the European and China stocks. So something to be mindful of. That's all. And most of them are like defensive in nature. So most growth stocks are still looking pretty bad and being punished severely. RSP, this is the S&P 500 equal weight. You can see it's still consolidating within a base, down 2.28% last week. Yeah, I always ask yourself, is the market, is it guilty or innocent? Is it worthy of my hard-earned dollars? And I'd say right now it still has work to do. The RSP is still 1.5% below the 200. So let's at least wait for it to get through there. I'm waiting on a follow-through day for it to power through with some volume. But the Nasdaq and the S&P and the RSP, which shows the breadth, needs some work, in my opinion. All right. Let me see here. just going to go through a couple of stocks. I'm going to forget the Mag 7. I did mention that the European stocks were doing well. This is BBVA, bank in Spain, and you can see up 1.34% last week. Same with Santander, another bank out of Spain. And then one that I had on my ready list last week was TIGO, a Luxembourg-based stock. You could see it breaking out of a base here, up 6.5% last week. So if you grab that one, you did pretty well. I was fortunate enough to grab that one. And then, Nokia is doing well. So a lot of the European stocks, I'm not going to go through all of them. I did mention the China names. LX is one that's doing well. Fintech stock. ZLAB is one that I had on my ready list. Had a nice week last week, up almost 5%. And then BZ is another one that had a decent week, up 11%. I think we'll take that. I'm just going to go quickly here because the miners, I'm at a hotel and they're not allowing me to download a big file, so I need to make this short. AEM, the miners, it's a leader of the miners. It was on our ready list last week, did great. I'm not going to show you all of them. That'll be a good representation of the miners. Another Canadian miner, Wheaton Precious Metals, showing out well last week, up nearly 5%. So that the miners are doing well. Orla is another one. Canadian mining company up, yeah, 15.5%. We'll take that. Also, I had the ready list 2 weeks ago. TG Therapeutics. It pulled back. If I go to the daily chart, yeah, it was up 6.24% last week, but it pulled back 3 days in a row. And on Thursday, it came back to this buy point here of 36.84. Just touched it, just kitched it for a minute, a little smackaroonie. And then on Friday, a nice 10% gain. If I go to the track price, it'll show you there that 36.84 on Thursday, it pulled back to 37. So close enough. On Wednesday, 36.82. So like I say, you got to be watching these things. You got to be quick. And then all of a sudden now on Friday, it traded over, what was it, almost 42, I believe. Yeah, 41.85. So this one is a buyout candidate, and it's just got amazing strength in sales and earnings growth. So I'm going to move on. In honor of the great Steve Jobs, I have one more thing. There's an insider buying at IONQ. And I think that one's one that's interesting to me. One of the executives spent over $2 million of his own money, and it bounced on Friday off, undercut the 200 and rallied back through, up 17%. Thank you for watching. I'll have an updated ready list on Monday morning. Have a great weekend. Never give up.